Today, we're going to be talking about FBI background checks and how they can help figure out what your options are. So if you were ever detained by immigration, either at the border or inside the United States, it's strongly recommended that you do what's called a FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act request, to try to figure out if there's a record of it and how they classified it. When someone is detained at the border, immigration typically either calls it a voluntary return or an expedited removal, depending on what they called it and what your prior immigration history is and what your immigration history is after that. That can help determine what your options are. So before doing the Freedom of Information Act request, I normally do an FBI background check. And so the reason to do that is because the FBI sometimes has information on immigration records, and the FBI response typically comes back pretty fast. And so if there is a record of a detention, we can use the date that's on there and the location to verify what it is the client remembers, and then use that to help us with prepare the FOIA request. So the reason why it's important to do this is because if you apply for an immigration benefit, one of the first things immigration is going to have you do is do a biometrics appointment, which is to take your fingerprints and photo, and they're going to use that to compare it to different databases like FBI, local police, state police, immigration agencies. And so they're looking for deportations, detentions, arrests, convictions. And so immigration is going to have all this information. So it's important to have that information beforehand so that it can be determined what you're eligible for. So normally I do the FBI background check first, and then I decide which FOIAs need to be done. So depending on when the detention occurred and where it occurred, that lets me know what FOIAs I need to do. Sometimes it's just the FBI and 2 FOIAs. Sometimes it's the FBI and 3 or 4 FOIAs. So this is a determination best made by an immigration attorney as to which FOIAs need to be done, and also what records to request and how to word the request. But the FBI background check is something that you could do on your own if you would like. This is the website where you go to do it. So if you complete an online application and you pay an $18 fee, then you mail in your fingerprint card and the confirmation, and you wait for the response. So let's go to that website now, and I'll show you how to do it. So this is the website that you go to, and you're going to go down here and enter in your email address. They're going to send you a link and a PIN number. And you're going to want to save this email because you're going to need that PIN number once they tell you that the response is ready. Okay, so this is the link they sent me and my PIN number. And then you hit accept. And then you can enter in your information, your name, date of birth, place of birth. If you're a citizen or resident, then you mark yes. Otherwise, you mark no. Country of citizenship, country of residence, and then if you have a social security number, a valid one, you could put the last 4, and race. Next up is putting in a mailing address. So you can choose to have them just email you the response, but they do ask for a mailing address. I use my PO box for the request I make for my client. If you have a valid social, they want to know if you want the social on the response, and they want to know if you want your date of birth on the response. Do you want to receive email notifications, and do you want a hard copy? So that's up to you. I'm fine with just an email of it. This is where you're going to send the FBI fingerprint card. So this is what my clients use. And you send this along with the confirmation. So after you do this, it'll allow you to pay the $18 fee, and then I'll send you an email with the confirmation. You're going to print out that confirmation and send that with the FBI ink card to the address that was just on the screen before, and then you're going to wait for the response. So this is an example of when the response comes and there is no record of anything. It says the search of the fingerprints provided by this individual has revealed no prior arrest data at the FBI. This does not preclude other criminal history at the state or local level. So for example, if you were arrested or convicted of a DUI or shoplifting, it may not necessarily be on here. This is FBI. It usually has like national events, not local, like a local DUI. For a criminal background check, the best thing to do would be to do a background check with your state. So for example, California has the live scan that can be done. Here is an example of when there were records found. So here on the left, it says that the search has revealed prior arrest data at the FBI. And then here on the right, we see that there's a detention in 1998 at San Isidro, that there was an attempted illegal entry and that a fake document or someone else's document was used. So now we know, now this person knows that there is a record and how they classified it as a deportation. So this is important information to know. Unfortunately, it's not good news, but sometimes the best thing that a person can do is nothing. And so we know that having this on the person's record is going to greatly limit their immigration options. There are still some cases that can be done with an expedited removal on the record, but it does greatly limit their options, and they may not be eligible for anything if they're not eligible for those limited options. Okay, so now that we have the FBI response, what I do next is submit the FOIA requests. The reason why I do the FBI first is because sometimes my client's memory is not the greatest. Sometimes, for example, they could say, oh, I was detained in June 98, and then we get the FBI response and it says that they were detained in June 1999, for example. Or maybe they just know the year, they don't know the month. So if there is a record on the FBI, then we can use that date with the FOIA with the FOIA requests. And the FBI response usually only takes about a month. So it, in my opinion, is worth the wait. Like I mentioned, not all the FOIAs necessarily need to be done. It depends on when the detention occurred and where it occurred. And then once we have all of the responses, then it's important for an immigration attorney to evaluate to see what the person's options are. And you can't do that until you have all of them done, all the responses back. Sometimes the responses are not going to match. Sometimes I have a response that says nothing was found, and then the next one comes in and they have a record of a detention. So the best thing to do is to wait until all of the responses are back and compare the information and then see, okay, is this person still eligible? Do they have an expedited removal on their record? Do they have a 10-year bar? Do they have a permanent bar? Figure all of that out and then see what their options are. So I hope this information helped. If you have questions about FOIAs, then please give us a call or send us a message. We'd be happy to help. We discussed right now FOIA, but our main focus is people who are trying to get permanent residency through a family member, such as a spouse or a child or a parent. We also do U visas, which are for victims of crimes, VAWA, DACA, citizenship. So I hope this video helped you, and best of luck with your case.